I'm recording on the camera. Women are better shooting students than men. They just
Bravo.
They just are.
Bravo. Anytime.
There's no such thing as a weaker sex.
Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back. It's another edition of The Gun Cranks. And I am Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, as usual. At least every time I check. We've got Roy Huntington, special assignments editor, and Eric Gelhaus, editor of AmericanCop.com. You'll notice...
We don't know who he is. He just shows up every once in a while. Yeah.
Well, he's Tom's replacement. Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner, keeps disappearing on us. And last I heard, guys, I think he was dancing lead with La Cage aux Folles or something.
It was. I thought it was a river dance. It was
that could be.
Yeah,
could be.
Yeah.
I heard he was going to the Texas opening.
Right.
Well, you know, Tom in tap shoes and tights is not something I want to see, but maybe there's
I bleach.
However, I support his right to do that.
That's right.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Because it's the 21st century and you can be what you want to be, just as long as I don't have to see it. So
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, guys, Roy suggested our topic today, and, honestly, we probably should have invited Ashley, our digital editor, in, but being as she would tell us what she thought, that might have got kind of scary. So we're going to tackle, he said, she said, guns for girls. I'm using the air quotes.
Ooh.
No, we've all been down that road where you either buy your wife something, a gun or a firearms accessory, and you learn really quickly that's probably not what she wanted. And that's been a problem in the entire industry. Guys who tend to be involved in product development think shrink it and pink it really works. And if you've ever talked to a woman about shooting, you'll learn real quickly that it takes a little more than that. So I've got one good story with my lovely wife where I learned this the hard way. But Roy, you suggested this. I'm guessing you've made a mistake or two in your life?
No, I never have.
Never.
Because
never.
I paid attention, even in the early days. It's like...
Really?
Yeah. Kim Brody, the international shotgun star, has more gold medals than any other athlete in any other sport. And she uses a 12 gauge over and under shotgun. So, and I've had too many girls out on my back patio out here that shoot 44 Magnums and 45 ACPs and all that kind of stuff. What irritates me is the know-it-all gun owner, I don't know, naivete group, who they go in the gun store and they say, yeah, I need to buy my wife a gun. She's just a little missy there. And so I figured, let's get her a Smith & Wesson J-frame. And the best one I ever heard, a Walther PPKS. Not only is it the stupidest gun you would want to own, but it's the stupidest gun you would want to get for a woman because it takes a lot of effort and stuff. It's a professional's gun. If your woman is a professional, then she can do it. But no, boys, gentlemen, do not load your 44 Magnum with 240 grain semi-jacketed hollow points at 1,400 feet per second and hand it to your wife and say, here, shoot this. No, it's stupid and it's not attractive and you're an idiot if you do that. All right. And I'm sure Eric will back me up, and I know Brent will back me up on this. A J-frame is a professional's gun. It's not a novice gun. They're hard to shoot. They kick a lot. It's not what you buy your wife. What you buy your wife is a 4-inch K-frame 38 and load it with wad cutters until she gets up to speed on shooting a gun. And from there on, it could be anything. It doesn't matter. I don't care. It's probably going to be a Desert Eagle someday. But don't alienate them right off the bat. And just, what did you say, Brent? Shrink it and pink it?
Yeah.
That is so wrong. Just because there's girls in guns and those clubs and stuff, and they're in pink camouflage and all that, that's great. I'm gonna end my rant with one thing. My wife, Susie, who used to be editor of American Cop, she's a retired cop. She's hunted around the world. She's been to every gun, class in the world. She says, I don't want to take a class with women. I want to take a class with men because chances are good I'm going to have to fight against a man. And I want to know what they do. And so don't hand a J-frame to Susie. Hand her a Hellcat or an XD or a full-size Kimber 5-inch 1911 or something like that. So, all right, end of rant.
Wow, you feel kind of strong about this, don't you?
I do. Because too many women get alienated by idiots.
Yep.
Well, absolutely not disagreeing with you. Yeah, what he said. I guess we're done now, guys. No.
I want to hear what Eric says about what he sees at gun sites.
Yeah.
So hold on before we go there. I can remember doing local CCW classes, and I was reminded of this by the husband and wife team a year or two ago at a retirement party where the gal finished up the CCW class. Well, what gun should I buy? And I'm like, 5-inch 1911, God's gun. And they're reminded me of this. And they're like, really? Tanya carrying a full-size 1911? I'm like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best call, but I was younger. Tom's comment about, I'm sorry, I completely brain faded.
He said some hurtful things towards you, Roy, but that's it right there.
Thank you, right there. I sorry, lost it. Roy's comment about loading up full power 44 Magnum loads, right? That's asinine. It's as asinine as academies that would hand the vertically challenged recruit a shotgun loaded up with full power slugs. Don't do it. Or you wouldn't want it done to you. Don't do it to another human being. The one thing that I have noticed is that the small people thinking the smaller guns will be easier. Is I've had folks show up for gun sight classes with either a Glock 43 or a Glock 26, and very quickly we're trying to get them into a Glock 19.
Yeah.
Just to get through the week, right? Have a gun that you can shoot, that you can manage, and everything else. Now it's not common, but it's happened enough that those two particular models stand out in my head. Folks trying to come through with those. So take them to the store. Let them figure out what works for them. Go to a range where you can rent guns. Find your buddy who's got two of everything under the sun and offer to buy him lunch and dinner, if he'll let your better half work through the collection to figure out what works for her, not what you think will work for her.
Yep.
The Glock 48s, the 4-inch shields, the Shield Pluses, the SIG 365s, any of the things in that category are probably decent choices because they're damn near full-size fighting pistols anyway. They're just a little bit easier to conceal and a little bit easier to get your hand around.
You just said an important thing, though, is that about a full-size fighting pistol, because, my own wife, when she first became a policeman, somebody told her, get a Walther PPKS. She hated it. Every step of the way, she hated it. And then they said, well, you need a SIG P226, right? Full-size holster gun. So she bought one of those, right? Always terrifying, couldn't shoot it well. Qualification was always a disaster. When I met her, I gave her my SIG P225. And I remember it vividly. I had excess big dot sights on it. The first time she shot it, she qualified and she looked at me and she said, wow, this is nice. And it's like, hello, Yeah, and one more thing is that Smith & Wesson Easy 380, if you're familiar with that, I know you guys are. I have to say, it's about the perfect first gun for anyone, but if it's your first gun, it's easy to run, it doesn't recoil a lot, it's comfortable, it's big enough that you have your manual arms, you can operate the gun. They make it a 9mm. I think that's a good thing. Although, let me throw this on the table to you guys. Is a semi-auto a good idea for a first-time gun owner like your wife, who is probably never going to practice after you buy her the gun? Or would you rather see her with a revolver?
Definitely a wheel gun.
They can both have stoppages and malfunctions. To me, it would go more to preference. Like, let them shoot both and let them choose.
Good advice. Yeah.
Good advice. I see this firsthand, and that's all I'm going to say, is recurring training. It sometimes doesn't happen with folks that aren't really into the whole shooting thing. So that's where I think a wheel gun, like Roy said, not a 2-inch snubby, but a normal size, full size, 4-inch, 38, something like that, that the manual of arms is a bit abbreviated compared to the various things you can run into with a semi-auto. Having said that,
Yeah.
I've seen countless women that run semi-autos like it's nobody's business. So
Yeah.
it's not that, but I'd say, I guess really I'd say the same thing for a guy shooter. I've told them that if you're not going to train periodically and be familiar with, stoppages and clearing and all that kind of stuff, maybe you need to look at a wheel gun. So,
But I see it
2
here.
cents there.
Yeah, I put them in the backyard, and you give them an auto pistol, even if you just got finished showing them how to run it. They put the magazine, they go, now what do I do next? I run the slide. Okay, now do I put the safety on, or what do I do now? How do I unload it? And then run the slide. Okay, now let's transfer that to the home gun, and it's your wife or girlfriend, and you load this fill in the blank whatever gun, auto pistol, and it goes in the drawer next to their bed, and 6 or 8 months later, they pick it up. Are they going to remember to do that? No.
Nope. And I'll go on a rant here, Roy, because I firmly believe this. Part of this problem is, because I've seen it firsthand, both in classes and at gun stores. The guy that's giving the advice, is he even qualified to give the advice?
No, they never are.
Not at all. Not at all.
Nope.
And it's a rare guy that can admit to his wife, well, honey, I'm barely adequate myself. Maybe we ought to seek out somebody that's got more knowledge than I. It's the rare man that can do that. But frankly, it seems like the people with the least amount of knowledge tend to have the loudest opinions, and we've all seen them in the gun shop, or unfortunately sometimes they're working at the gun shop. Well, little lady, whenever you hear that, well, little lady, and I've actually heard that, that should be a big warning sign. But guys, if you have a significant other that is interested in carrying a firearm, that's great. But make sure you're even qualified to assist. There's no dishonor in saying, you know what, we need to go to Bill because he's an very he shoots a lot and he knows a lot about firearms, or let's get you some training at the local range or whatever. Don't be afraid to do that. And here's the other dark secret that I know the other guys will back me up on because we've talked about it. Women are better shooting students than men. They just
Bravo.
Yeah, they just are.
Bravo. Anytime.
Anytime, every time.
Yeah.
I can point you to examples in some amazingly high resolution of computer imagery about women being better students than men. And I can't go beyond that right now. But yes.
No, it's really true. Now, I owned a gun store in the early 80s. And do I have stories to tell you about men? And it was kind of a cop gun store. And so the cops would come in with their wife. And they would say, hey, honey, you need a new gun. And then what would they do? They would invariably have me look at the J-frames and the little short-barreled Tauruses and stuff like that. And I would always say, okay, that's really nice. Ma'am, could I talk to you for a minute? And then my partner would distract their husband for a while.
Yeah.
And I would put a 4-inch K-frame or a something, 4-inch Taurus something if they were on a budget. And then have her pull the trigger, let her aim it a couple times, open up the cylinder, and invariably they would look at me and say, oh, I like this. This isn't so complicated like my husband's guns are. It's like, and I'm not saying that to demean women. All it is anyone would look at a gun like that and say, well, this is not as complicated as that other gun is.
Yep.
And so, I don't know why. We need to let go of the male bullshit about we know everything, And it's like, if you're not going to fix your fuel injection on your 2019, car, you go to the mechanic who knows what he's doing. And so like Brent said, if you don't really have a background, if you're not an Eric who trains at gun sight or something like that, I say you need to reach out to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yep. Guys, I bet you've both had this experience. You're teaching a CCW class, a very basic, very introductory type class, and women will show up, and sometimes they tell you, sometimes they don't, but it's pretty obvious. They've never shot, they've never carried a gun, they don't know anything about it. and you start talking to them, trying to build their confidence so that they're not intimidated by this. To say, okay, what do you have? And you've seen it. Well, my husband got this for me, and they'll unzip the pouch or the bag or whatever, and it's breathtaking in its crapitude.
Bond Arms 2-shot 38 Special Derringer.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And you're just
what are you thinking?
Yeah. I have seen him also sent, it wasn't a Desert Eagle, but it was some very large gun in some arcane caliber. And she's like, well, he told me this is his favorite, so he sent me with it. And it's like, really? Okay, that's setting her up for failure. And, that's where I do tend to get pretty over the top myself. In teaching classes, I'll tell a quick story where we were teaching. The 4-H youth program, and all their instructors were on the range in the morning. Then we took over in the afternoon. So everybody's kind of mixing and tearing targets down and all that, and our students are coming in. And there was this one guy that he actually stood there and started making fun of our students. And some of the students heard it, and it was just awful. And I to this day, this guy's still around here, and I don't understand why he thought that was a good idea. It was purely chauvinistic. That's all it was. He was making fun of women shooters, even though we had men and women and who knows what else. No, he was making fun of them, and it just, the more I heard a little comment, and you kind of let that go. And then another little comment, and then he started getting on a roll. I think he was entertaining his fellow instructors. And finally, our lead instructor called him behind the building, and he never came back. And there was protests lodged, and we had a couple students confide in us. They heard that, and they really didn't appreciate it. And it's still to this day, that's been 15, maybe 20 years ago, and it just makes me angry that we keep saying we want to be inclusive, we want women shooters, we want people or non-traditional old white guys that are shooters. We want everybody because that builds our political power, and it ensures that the Second Amendment's not going to be crushed under the boot heel of tyranny. But why wouldn't we have half the population join us? But when you do that kind of crap, and another thing, all those YouTube videos of the giving the girl the 12 gauge with the slugs and say, now hold it 2 inches away from your shoulder. Yeah. And then, if you do that, you're evil, you're a son of a bitch.
Well, Susie has a good word for those people, is that they show a level of assholishness that is, it's hard to document,
Yeah.
And no, I agree with you completely. All of what everybody's saying is exactly right. Just don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
Because think about this for a minute. You are in a rare and wondrous position to introduce a new shooter to something that we're passionate about. So don't mess it up, because you have nothing to prove to anybody. Because if you think you're going to prove something, like that guy Brent you were talking about who was being an idiot, right? All you're doing is painting yourself as an idiot, and you will be a star of a future Gun Cranks show. But no, yep. Step back, take a deep breath, and say, how would I want to introduce someone so it's a fun experience for them? I know I've had a few times where people show up here and Susie will drag, waifs home and say, could you teach Beverly how to shoot? And it's like, sure. Does Beverly have a gun? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they bring, like you said, Brent, really stupid guns, right. And I just put them away, yeah. And I can bring it. But every once in a while, one will show up with a, 4-inch 22 revolver or a Ruger Standard 22 auto pistol or something simple like that. And that within a half an hour or 45 minutes, they're having a lot of fun breaking balloons and learn how to run the gun. And then they're always really excited and really happy, and they want to know when can they come back to shoot. And that's what it's all about.
Yep. Exactly. So guys, don't be a douchebag, as Susie Huntington would say.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking, Roy, if anybody pulls that and we know about it, we're going to send Susie out to deal with you. And you don't want to deal with Susie. She's always nice, but Susie's more of a man than I am sometimes.
I know. She is not afraid. She will walk right up to you and say, you are being an idiot. Stop it. You know?
Yeah.
So,
She'll spit in your eye and stomp you.
all right. So what's the moral of the story here? I mean, I think the moral of the story is you know, Brent, you use the word inclusive, and I know that's a little campy, you know, that we all kind of like go, except it's really true in this situation. I recently had a young couple from Australia who are visiting somebody I know, and he said, you should go visit Roy because he'll let you shoot some guns. Of course, you can't shoot guns in Australia. So I brought them by here. Very nice people, millennials, you know, or what, maybe Xers, I don't know, they were in their middle 20s, never shot a gun before, had all of the, you know, preconceived notions of everything. And so I started them off with 22 revolvers. They were popping balloons and shooting Necco wafers and stuff like that. And then by the end of about 2 or 3 hours, they both shot my 6.5-inch Model 29 44 Magnum revolvers and enjoyed it. You see what I mean? And so just take the time and help these people.
Yep. And there, Roy, you created an international incident by subverting the authoritarian government of Down Under.
You know what he said? I had him shoot I have a 25 caliber Air Force air gun, and he shot that. And if you've ever shot one, they sound like a rifle. They go crack, you know, when they go off. And it banged my 80-yard steel silhouette. And he looked up at me, and he was so excited. He said, you know, we can own air guns in Australia. So I think I created a monster. He lives in northeast Australia, and it's real jungly there. And I guess they have these cane toads, I think he said.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's, you know, millions of them everywhere. And I could see his eyes. He's like, I have a new mission. You know,
I have seen the light.
I've seen the light. So cool.
Excellent. Well, cool. Eric, did you have something? I didn't want to step on your statement.
I was just gonna say, right? Let the gals or guys, whoever it is who's the new shooter, let them figure out what's appropriate for them. Give them a bunch of options. Let them try it. There's a number of groups out there. Shoot Like a Girl, Armed Women of America, that we work with all the time down at Gunsight, and I'm sure there's others that I'm going to forget. We've done articles on one of them over at American Cop, right? That's not a bad place to point, folks. It's an environment that they may feel more comfortable in until they get up and running with the gun, and then want to go to the Susie route because I want to go shoot with the guys so I know what I might go up against, right? But work those things. Get them into a place where they can grow.
All right. Well, good stuff. I hope you can hear me. I can't tell, but it looks like my microphone has fallen completely down in my shirt. So never had that problem before, but I guess the other guys can hear me, so we're okay. But anyway, it's been great. And it's been really great because Tom McHale's not here. And we'll see if he watches this episode. But don't forget, check out AmericanCop.com, AmericanHandgunner.com, GunsMagazine.com, the Guns Magazine podcast. And of course, if you want to hear this instead of seeing it, there is the Gun Cranks podcast available on most podcast directories. So check all that out. And of course, our special editions available on our websites and at Amazon. And gentlemen, great advice as usual. We've had fun here, and we're going to do it again next week on the Gun Cranks. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Weed, along with Tom McHale, editor of American Handgunner, Eric Yellowhouse, editor of AmericanCop.com, and man about town, Roy Huntington.